Hello again everybody and welcome back. This is the third video in our 6-part video series covering in OpenCV 3 character recognition and license plate recognition, and in this video we're going to perform character recognition in Visual Basic. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. So we're going to go to GIT, HUB, MIC, microcontrollers and more, and take out the spaces, and then we're going to go here, and then we're going to go to repositories. And before I go any further, I should mention a prerequisite for today's video is definitely you'll want to check out this repository here, OpenCV 3 Windows 10 installation tutorial. And then I've linked to a playlist here. And you'll definitely want to check out this video here as well, OpenCV 3 Windows 10 installation tutorial part 3, VisualBasic.net and C# with Emgu CV. So continuing on with today's project, we're going to go to OpenCV 3 KNN character recognition Emgu CV 3 Visual Basic. And let's first take a quick look at the directory contents here. So let's first look at docs and presentation and KNN overview.png, and this is a slide I made trying to give a quick overview explanation of the KNN algorithm. And for those interested in further detail on this, you could internet search on some of the various terms found on this slide. And the slide itself, of course, just provides a very brief overview, but I like to stick to an implementation focus in my videos rather than to get hung up on theory, so I'll leave it at that for now. And then we can also take a look at classifications and training images data structures, and this is some of the data structures in the program today. We'll get to the code later. And then form design here. These are the two forms that we're going to make today. So to perform character recognition, first we're going to make a project, generate data with this form that's going to generate the data necessary to perform the character recognition, and then we're going to make a second project in Visual Studio, that is, train and test, and then this will be the form that we'll make for that. So I'll go ahead and open a separate window so we can have the form design documents separately. And then we're going to return to the same repository here. So OpenCV3 KNN character recognition, Emgu CV3 Visual Basic. And the first project we're going to make today, gen data, we can put all the code in the main form. And then the second project, we're going to train and test. We're going to have some code in the main form, and then we're also going to have a separate class as well, contour with data.vb. And if we take a look at these images down here, training characters.png, this is the image we're going to train on. And so as you can see in 5 different fonts here, we have the numbers 0 through 9, and then the letters capital A through capital Z written out. And then once we've trained on that, we're going to test on test 1, 2, and 3. So test 1 is ABC 1, 2, 3. Test 2 is DEF 4, 5, 6. And test 3 is going to be XYZ 7, 8, 9. So let's go ahead and fire up Visual Studio. And then we're going to go to gen data FRM main, and then we're going to build the project. And let's see, so to do that, we're going to close out of here and then go to File, New Project. And we're going to go ahead and put that in Documents, Visual Studio 2015. And projects, nice and empty there, ready for us. So we're going to go ahead and copy in the project name. So at this point I'll pretty much just be copying and pasting out of this code here that I had on the screen just a moment ago. So we're going to choose Visual Basic and Windows Forms application, and then gen data, and choose your preferred directory, uncheck those, and choose OK. And once the project comes up, the first thing I suggest to do is to rename the form. So we'll go ahead and resize that and save, and then we're going to right click on the form name and choose rename, FRM main, and enter. And then it's going to ask us, do you want to update all references? Yes, of course we do. And now if we choose save and then run it, there's actually one reference rather that Visual Studio does not automatically update for us, so we get this error here. So we're going to take form 1 here, and we're going to replace that with FRM main, and then save application designer and close out of it, and now we'll find that the program will start for us. There's our form. So then we're going to do close out of that and close out of that, and then the next thing is to set up our Emgu references, and again this is covered in detail in that tutorial video I mentioned earlier, so please see that if you're unclear on any of these steps here. So we're going to go to project, and then add reference, and then browse, and then we're going to add those DLLs, and then add, and then we're going to go to choose OK of course, and then we're going to go to project, add existing item, and then we're going to go to this PC, and then C, Emgu, and Windows Universal 3, and bin, and then x86, and then we're going to show all files, and then we're going to highlight all those and choose add. And then we're going to choose the, okay, we can minimize references here, then we're going to choose these 4 DLLs. And then we're going to open up properties and change copied output directory to copy always. And go ahead and save it, and now we're ready to add the components to the form. So as we do that, we're simply going to work from the code here. We can copy and paste the name straight out of here. And then we're also going to work from this form design document, and this is the form that we're going to be making. So I'm going to slide these over to the other 2 windows, and that's what I'll be working from as I assemble the form here. So first thing is to place the components on there, so table layout panel. So if we bring up the toolbox, might as well bring up the properties window as well. So if we go to let's see, containers and table layout panel, and then we can go ahead and make that a little bit bigger. And we're actually going to size it to fit the form later, but just to give us something to work with here at design time, we'll go ahead and make that a little bigger. And we might as well paste in the names as we go, so table layout panel. And then the next one's going to be button open training image, and that I believe goes in the top left square. Yes, it does. So common controls, button in the top left, and that's button open training image. And then label chosen file is next here, copying and pasting out of the other screen, so label goes there, and then that's label chosen file, and then our text box is going to go here, and we're going to name that text info, and then just one more component, open file dialog. So we're going to go to, that's not in common controls, rather we're going to go to dialogs and open file dialog, and then we're going to name that OFD open file, and then we can go ahead and save. And that's all the components we need to add, I believe, so we can close out of the toolbox. And now we can set our properties. So if we choose the label on the button, let's go ahead and make the font much bigger. Let's say 12, and then we can resize the button here just a little bit so the text isn't hidden, but we're going to auto size that momentarily. So for the text box, we have some properties to set here. So word wrap, let's set that to false. And multi-line, let's set that to true, and scroll bars, let's set that to both. And then we're going to set column span to 2, and then dock to fill, and that should jump across the 2 columns. There we go. And let's see, did we set the font? We did not set the font for that yet, so let's go ahead and set the font for the text box to 12, and then Courier New, so it's a fixed width font. And then choose OK. And now for the button and the label, we can set the anchor property to left and right rather than top and left. And let's go ahead and set the text for these here. So for the button, we're going to make this, we're going to make the text for the button OPEN-TRAINING-IMAGE. And for the label, we're going to make the text blank. And as well as blanking the text, we're going to change the text align to just left rather than top and left. And let's see, if we choose the button here, if we go to auto size true and then size mode grow and shrink, and now if we choose the table layout panel, and then we go to this arrow at the top here and then edit rows and columns, and I believe we change the first column and the first row both to auto size. There we go. And then we're going to choose the table layout panel again, and then we're going to choose a dock and make that fill. And I think we're all set as far as our form here. Let's just run it and go ahead and check. So here's our form. We can move it around. It'll resize. It should maximize and minimize. There we go. So we're all set. Button doesn't do anything yet, but we'll remedy that momentarily. So the next step to do is we're going to look at the code here, and we're going to check for any events, and I believe the only one is the button click. And there we go. Yes, so we're going to make the button click event, and then we're going to shoot down here and copy and paste in all the code that Visual Studio doesn't make for us automatically. So if we choose the button here, let's make sure we've named it BTN Open Training Image. Yep, so now we can just double click on the button, and that'll start to write the button click event for us. And we'll just adjust the spacing here a little bit, so go ahead and save that, and then we're going to go back to the code here and copy and paste in the rest of the code. So we're going to paste in at the top, and then we have some module level variables. It's actually just 3 constants to paste in, and there we go. And then we're going to grab this comment line for the beginning of the function, and then the body of the click event function, which goes right there. And that should do it for that. Before we run the program though, here's the project directory. So we're in GenData currently, so there's our project. So what we need to do is we need to go to, let's open up another GitHub here, and then we can go to, whoops, not that, we can go to GitHub and then repositories, and that same repository we've been in so far. And if we choose download.zip and open, that's going to give us access to downloading the images for today. So we're going to go to our project directory then here, and we're going to copy training characters into our project directory, and then I believe we can go ahead and fire up the program if everything's all set. So open training image, and then we're going to go to the current project directory. So let's see, this PC, documents, Visual Studio 2015, projects, GenData, and training characters.png. And let's take a look at these images here. So this is a threshold image of, just a moment here, back to the GitHub repository. So if we go back one more screen here, so training characters.png. So here's training characters.png as it is in the repository. So this is simply a thresholded version of that. And this is that same training characters.png image, only as we're typing in the characters here, which we're going to do to train them, we're drawing a red box around the current character. And then the other two boxes here, this character here on the left is a crop of the current character, and then this on the right is the crop of the current character resized to a width of 20 and a height of 30. So I'll go ahead and call out the characters as I'm typing them in here. And you do want to bear in mind that uppercase characters and lowercase characters are of course different ASCII numbers. So for sure you want to hold down Shift as you're typing in the letters to type uppercase characters, and then let off of Shift as you're typing in the numbers. So holding Shift now, Zebra, Tango, Robert, Paul, Mary, Frank, Edward, Delta, Bravo, Alpha, Yankee, X-Ray, Whiskey, Victor, Uniform, Sierra, Quebec, Omega, Nancy, Lima, Kilo, Juliet, Igloo, Hector, George, Charlie, and then letting off of Shift, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 3, 2, and 0, and 4, and 1. And now at this point I'm going to fast forward because you don't have to take the time to watch me type in the rest of these. 9, 8, 6, 3, 2, 1, and 0. And now we get the message training complete, file writing done. So we can go ahead and choose the main form and close out of that, and that will close all the windows for us. And now we're going to go back to the project directory, and if we go to bin and then debug, we're going to find there's two files in here that we just wrote in the course of performing that program, and those are classifications and images way down here. So let's just take a quick look at that. Classifications is the ASCII character numbers that we typed in as we were typing them, and you might not know it from looking at how .NET encodes them, but these letters actually are the ASCII numbers that we typed in. And then images is the image data, and of course this is the pixel by pixel data for all those images, each cropped out character, so this file is quite voluminous, but that will complete what we need to achieve for the first program, GenData. So now we're going to do train and test. So if we go back to projects here, and then we can close out of Visual Studio, and now we can go to this, back to the repository here. So we have two files here, train and test, FRM main, and let's start with that one. So first we'll make the project. So go ahead and fire up Visual Studio and give that just a second to start up. So we have the main form and then the class that we're going to add also. So we're going to go to File, New, Project, and then Visual Basic and Windows Forms application, and we're going to call this Train and Test and save it to the usual location, uncheck those, choose OK. And then we'll do the usual form renaming first and then setting up our references. And give Visual Studio just a moment. There we go. So resize the form, save, and let's just resize it a little bit more, and then right click on Form 1, rename FRM main, and yes, we want to update all references when it asks us, and then we're going to go ahead and run it, and we'll get that one usual error. They may resolve this in a future version of Visual Studio and make it update all the references in one shot, but that's okay. It's not a big deal until they do that. So we're simply going to name that FRM main, and then we can save application designer.vb and close out of that, and now the program should start for us successfully. And there we go, and the form can be resized and moved around and everything. So let's go ahead and set up our references. So let's see, if we go to Project, Add Reference, and then Browse and Browse, and then we're going to choose all of those, and then unselect Visual Studio 10, 12, and 13 because we're using 15 today, and then Add, and then OK. And then we're going to go to Project, Add Existing Item, and then we're going to go to this PC, C, Emgu, Windows Universal 3, bin, and x86. And then we're going to show all files, and then we're going to highlight those and choose Add. And then we're going to slide down here in Solution Explorer. Let's minimize references. So then we're going to choose the 4 DLLs we just added, and then we're going to go to Properties and Copy to Output Directory, Copy Always, and Save. And then we can open up the toolbox and we can start adding our components. But before we do that, let's make the class that we're going to make. So if we go back one here, we're going to go to contour with data.vb, so we can go ahead and copy the name here, and then we can go, you can either right click in here and go to, whoops, you got to left click on the project name, then right click and then go to add new item, or you can go up here, project, add new item, it doesn't matter which. Either way, choose VB class, and then we're going to name that contour with data.vb. So there we go, we're all set, and then we're going to add that. And then we can go to contour with data.vb here. We're on the GitHub repository. Go to raw and then simply Control A, Control C, highlight everything, and Control A, Control V, paste it in there. And then we're going to go back to the form design, and let's right click on the form here and do View Code to bring that up. So we'll just sort of shuffle this order. So here we've got the designer, then form main. Let's add a few spaces. We'll get back to that shortly. And then there's contour with data, which we've already pasted in. So let's get back to the form designer and go ahead and assemble the form. So this is going to be pretty similar to what we did previously, working from the same form design document. First we did generate data in the previous program, and now we're going to do train and test in the current program. So now we're going to build this form, again very similar to the previous form. So we're going to then go back here, and to have the names to copy and paste for each of the components, we're going to go to train and test frmmain.vb, and then we'll just be copying and pasting the names out of here. So frmmain obviously is already added, so next is table layout panel. So we're going to go to containers, table layout panel, and then we can go ahead and just reposition this a little bit. Of course, we'll center it to the form momentarily. And then we're going to go to the name and table layout panel. And then we're going to go to adding the button next. So let's see, close, minimize containers here, common controls, button goes there, and button open test image, and then we're going to do label chosen file, and that's going to go right there, label chosen file. And then we're going to add the text box on the bottom, so that's going to be down here, text box, and then we're going to add that text info, and then we're going to add the open file dialog box. So let's see, that's going to be in dialogs and open file dialog. Go ahead and name that as well. And the only event in this program, just as in the previous one, is the button. So let's go ahead and make sure we've named that button open test image, then we can double click on that, and that will start to write that event for us. And we'll come back to the code later, of course. First we're going to finish our form. So let's go ahead and close out of the toolbox. We don't need to add any more. So this is going to be very similar to the previous video as far as setting the properties. So let's see here, font. For these we're going to set to 12, and then we're going to resize the button. Actually, let's just directly choose here auto size true, and then grow and shrink, and we can go ahead and put in the names here. So that of course is going to be open, OPEN, TEST, IMAGE, and then we'll set the anchor properties for these both here, the button and the label, to be left and right, and there we go. And then for the label we're going to set the text property to blank, and then text align to left only, not top and left. And now we can set some properties for the text box. We're going to set the font to 12, size of 12, and the font itself to Courier New, and then we're going to set let's see, column span to 2, and then doc to fill. And then we're going to set some properties at the bottom here, word wrap to false, and let's see, multi-line, where's multi-line, set that to true. And then scroll bars, we can go ahead and set that to both. And we should be all set there. So now we're going to choose the table layout panel, and then we're going to do edit rows and columns, and we can set the first column and the first row to auto size. And we still have the table layout panel chosen, so we can go to doc and then fill. And I think that will do it for the form. Let's go ahead and give it a quick test. So the button doesn't do anything yet, but that's okay. The form's working great for us. And of course it can resize and everything, minimize, maximize, etc. So it looks like the form's all set. So the next step that we're going to do is we're going to go to frmmain.vb, and then this is back to the GitHub repository here. We're going to go to raw and then copy in all the code that isn't there already. So let's see here. We can copy in at the top here, and then get rid of some of these empty spaces, and then we're going to add the module level variable section. It's actually just 2 constants. And then we're going to add this comment line just above the button click event and take out the space, and then we can copy and paste in the body of the button click event, and I believe that's it. There we go, and that should be all set. Okay, no red underlines, so that's looking good for us. So then the final step is we're going to go back to the project directory, and so that's going to be train and test. This is a project we just made. Now we're going to go to that download zip directory, and then we're going to copy the 3 test images into our project directory. And we no longer need the zip, so we're going to close out of that. And the next step, or actually the final step before we run the program, I should say, is if we go back to gen data and then bin, you'll recall, and then debug, this is where classifications and images are. So then we're going to copy both of those. And then we're going to go to train and test, bin, and debug, and then paste them into train and test here. Okay, so, and again, that was in projects, train and test, bin, and then debug. You have to put those 2 in the same directory as the executable, or the program won't see it at runtime. So I believe that's everything, so we can go ahead and test the program now. So if we go to open test image, and we're in the current project, so projects, train and test, so we can open test 1. And there we go. So here's our image, ABC123, and here's our text. As you can see, these are actual text characters that we can copy and paste, for example, into Notepad. So that's worked out successfully for us. Let's go ahead and try the second image here, DEF456, DEF456, and then XYZ789 and XYZ789. So we've successfully completed character recognition in C++, Python, and Visual Basic. So the next 3 videos are going to be license plate recognition in C++, Python, and then Visual Basic. So I'll see everybody in the next one.